Let's go ahead and discuss the other light types we have available, starting with something very cool called an IES light. Now, whenever you choose an IES, you'll have a file called .ies that you can use. And let me just take you to a website where you can get some of these. This is lithonia.com. And these files are made by actual lighting companies, and they have certain parameters. For example, how the light is going to be as far as intensity, how any kind of effects in the lens will look in your room, for example. So let me just go and head back to Cinema 4D, and I'll load this file. And I'm going to move it into position. Now here is the light, and what we have to do is play around with some of the parameters. So the first thing I'm going to do is go to its properties, and I'm going to increase the intensity of this light. All right, so I have the intensity. I'll go ahead and put on a nice soft shadow, and I'm going to go ahead and move around in my scene, and I'll go ahead and do a quick render. And you see here, you get an extremely natural, very, very soft light. Once again, these are actually designed by people who do this for a living. So the lights are going to be for different things, from emergency lights to industrial lights, the kinds of things you'll find in recessed lighting and that kind of stuff. All right, so definitely check out the IES lights. I really like using them a lot. So I'm going to go ahead and delete this for now. We also have available to us the area light. An area light is really good to use when you want to do things like show maybe electronics. Nice soft light, TV screen, a light, that's going to be flat, billboards, that kind of stuff. Area lights are very soft, just like the IES light, and they can really spread a very nice, warm feeling in your scene. So I'm going to go ahead and render this. And see that? It's very nice and soft, just like the IES light. I can go ahead and put the shadows on this one as well. Do another quick render. Just a very nice, pleasant light. Now, they do tend to take a little longer to render than any of the other types here. So be careful with the area light, because the more stuff you have in your scene, the nicer it could look, but the more time could be spent actually rendering. Now, we also have an infinite light. An infinite light is like the sun. All right, it just comes from somewhere out there in space, and it just keeps going. The light itself, let me move it into position, does not change based on where we move it. It changes based on where we point it. So if I rotate this light, you now see it taking place in our scene. Think of this as the sun. It also generates a rather harsh shadow for the most part. So this is really good to use when you want to convey things like planets or cities from a distance. So if you're doing a medium shot of a city or a wide shot of a city, and you want those really hard shadows that you typically get from the sun, that's really a good choice. So let me go ahead and turn the shadows on for this guy, and I'll go ahead and render it. So as I said, that you get that very long, hard shadow that you find on buildings, this kind of thing here, all right? And I'll go ahead and put it on the ray trace shadow this time. All right, so that's the type of light you might want to use when you're doing exterior shots that have lots of architecture and that kind of stuff. Not really a hard rule, but that's typically when I would use this type of light. So I'm going to go ahead and get rid of this one as well. Now, last but not least, we have the sunlight, which is almost similar to the physical sky that I talk about elsewhere in the course. So the sunlight, it shows up in our scene, and the properties are almost like the physical sky, whereas we can go ahead and do things like choose things like the time of day. So if I hit today, for example, I can have the sun or the light convey that. I can also enter a date, as you see here. I can also enter a latitude and longitude and the distance. So I can really convey exact lighting based on parameters. So this is the type of light that you're going to use when you want to do that kind of stuff. Right? And typically you see here, you cannot move this light. This light is going to either need a null or some other way to parent it and move it around. But for the most part, you can control it by changing the latitude and the longitude. And as you see here, I'm changing the way the sun looks altogether just by moving that. I'll go ahead and do a very quick render. And as you see here, it's a nice warm sunny light with a nice hard shadow. All right, so that is a look at the additional lights that we have inside of Cinema 4D. 9 times out of 10, I will use a spotlight for lighting certain things. Most of the time, I will use the light here, the regular old Omni light. Area light for soft shadows. When I'm doing exterior scenes, I'll use an infinite light. And when I really want to just get a very nice outdoor shot, I'll go ahead and use a physical sky.